climbing, I believe, is like a lat dominant sport. And if you can figure out how to engage your lats, you're connecting your shoulder all the way through your body. Your lat attaches at your hip. Think about that. The muscle that controls your shoulder attaches at your hip.
Welcome to the Testpiece podcast. This podcast is about all things high-level climbing. How to go from good to great. I'm your host, Joshua Horsley. I've been climbing for over 30 years. We recently updated our Patreon, and now you get exclusive content from the guests that you love. You get your episodes before everyone else, and they're ad-free. Try it out now at patreon.com/testpiece with a free 7-day trial. Okay, let's start the show. Mark Heel. Yes, dude. So freaking psyched to have you on the podcast. For those who don't know, Mark, you are just a freaking legend here in the Bay Area. Lots of hard FAs, you've repeated everything here. You have set at probably every gym here, every major chain. I've known you for 13 years.
Maybe more.
I like that. On the pre-interview form, I always ask hey, just want to know, is there any media that I should check out to kind of remind me of your abilities? And you're like, dude, 13 years of friendship.
Yeah.
Any video that you see of me out there, you were probably the star of it. And some of those FAs, I was the cameraman. And so, yeah, Mark, long time coming to do this pod. Just so psyched to have you on here, man.
Thanks.
Yeah, I want to condense even more of your life into a little intro and be like, Mark, you're also the private coach of the area. I feel like you are probably one of the most sought after coaches, and I would argue one of the best coaches out there. And so, yeah, I'm excited to explore that time of getting better on my side and the integral part that you made me, your coaching. And then, you helped open up Benchmark, which is maybe the coolest gym in America. I'm just going to put that out there. Got to climb there last night. So yeah, man, psyched to have you.
Thanks. Yeah, psyched to be here.
Let's hear about your kind of origin story in climbing, because you started young. We're roughly the same age, we'll say. And just kind of, when did you start? How'd you get into it? What was climbing like for you?
Okay. Started climbing in high school at 15 at Mission Cliffs. Pretty new gym, new to the city, and just really fell in love with it. 1 day a week turned to 2 days a week, turns to 5 days a week. You're 15, you can climb a bunch.
7 days a week.
7 days a week, yeah.
8 days a week.
Exactly. So joined local youth teams, kind of met some of the kids in the area that were getting after it, who I still climb with this day, which is pretty fun. But yeah, just kind of started climbing on the zero gravity team with Cicada and Scott Corey and folks like that. Ethan and Natasha were climbing a bunch as well.
Ethan Pringle, Natasha
Barnes, yeah.
You can just do the first names.
Yeah.
I knew, but just,
That's true.
I've heard of those guys.
So just started climbing there, did the youth series for a bit, and then started climbing outside more and more. That kind of became the passion. Graduated high school, started route setting, traveled, climbed.
Yeah, lots of traveling, lots of climbing, lots of route setting, lots of climbing. Even more climbing. Dude, 15 is actually later than I thought you started.
Yeah.
That's actually a little late. And something that has always really stood out to me in your climbing is how much weight you put on your feet. I really just have always admired that and tried to learn from it. And if I remember correctly, you played rugby and you were big into biking. I feel like you had a more lower body dominant beginning before climbing.
Yeah. I played different sports in the UK, like football, cricket, rugby. I swam a lot. I swam competitively. There's always just different sports that I did growing up, but none of them kind of stuck like climbing did.
Yeah. The reason why I ask is that I'm always looking for some excuse as to why I don't put as much weight on my feet. I was like, maybe it's because Mark was a really strong lower body upbringing as a kid, but just tossing it out there to see if you just thought that was some secret sauce of yours for all that weight you put on your feet.
Honestly, I think it's just lack of upper body strength. It's forced to do it to succeed.
Well, That plus being able to crimp extremely, extremely hard seems to have worked out just fine for you. Uh, yeah. So I know that when you graduated high school and you were climbing a bunch, I want to say not long after that, you went to New York. Uh, and I actually met you when you came back from New York. And it seemed to me like the whole crew kind of pointed towards you leveling up when you were in New York. And I just want to, I don't know a ton about that time. I just know you went there and you were strong, but then you seemed to really hit your stride in New York. I want to hear more about that time.
Okay. Yeah, I guess when I moved out there, I had probably climbed a couple V10s, been climbing 3 years, and kind of came back. I haven't climbed V13.
A
And
lot different.
yeah, there's a big jump there. I think the thing that did it for me was having like a lot of control over what problems were on the wall in the gym. So I was able to set things that I wanted to climb on, things I thought people would also benefit climbing on, but really just spending a lot of time at the gym, being young, extremely motivated, getting outside a lot, climbing on a lot of different rock types as well. And then while I was there, I worked for Brooklyn Boulders and they supported me to go on like 3 probably big trips a year. So I got to go to Australia, I went to Switzerland, I went all over the US with them. Yeah, I probably had at least 75 days on rock a year. Maybe more like 90 or 100.
This is total tangent, but I was driving up. We're in San Francisco, where I lived for over a decade, and we climbed together a ton. I was sitting in traffic on the Bay Bridge, and I was just like, God damn it, I don't live in the city anymore. And it made me think of this whole scene of climbing being there's like two ways you can do it. You can be in this, out in the middle of nowhere, living by the mountains, climbing a bunch, kind of being more outdoor oriented, or you can be in the city and typically the gyms are better. Like I was just at Benchmark Berkeley yesterday. It was incredible. I'm jealous. I wish it was my home gym. And you managed to get outside and climb a ton while you're living in New York and you live in San Francisco. And just like, do you see a lot of people who get kind of stuck and siloed just indoors? And maybe, I don't know if you see the other end of the spectrum where there's people who just kind of like don't get indoors. Like, is the whole community here, like, do they just get stuck indoors too much because they're nearby good gyms and stuck in traffic?
Definitely. Yeah, it's a huge commitment to live in a city, but to go climbing outside as much. I think there's a lot of people who are climbing outside locally in the Bay Area, and that's great, but the quality of climbing is so much lower than the stuff in the Sierra. And I think just the lower quality kind of makes it harder and makes it sort of a bit weirder. It makes it you more limited to the number of palms you can climb on, right? You like if you want to climb your next V8, there's only 2 or 3 at this crag instead of you go to Bishop and there's 30 you can choose from, right? So yeah, I mean, I lived in the cities, but in New York, I was close to the airport, and all the travel I did was out of the airport. And I'd meet up with friends when I got to where I was going, so I didn't have to rent a car or fly with pads and things like that. So yeah, it's always had a commitment to like driving every Friday as you just get in the car and you drive. Josh is nodding his head. He does. But every Friday,
Brutal.
you get in the car, you drive to the mountains, and you make that weekend out of it, and you kind of come back, and it just kind of becomes normal.
I have this memory of, well, we'd go to Bishop on Fridays and it would take an hour and a half to get out of the city. And then you start your like 4 to 6 hour drive, depending on weather. And so that's Friday. And then you come back on Sunday and we would set together on Mondays. And I'll just remember getting dropped off at like 2 a.m. and you're like tossing my pads out of the car. We're kind of like saying goodbye, but you're like, I'll see you in like 4 hours. Like
Yeah.
it's brutal, but the crew here, the community is pretty special. The Bay Area crew is really special. And I know that, you've been a coach for over 10 years. We'll get more into all the coaching stuff later, but I'm curious what you see in your clients who not even necessarily by choice, but are kind of forced to be indoors a lot. Like kind of what holes do you see in their either technique or their strengths or weaknesses? Like, what do you see in that population?
Yeah, good question. It's all the competency around actually getting on top of the boulder, the landing, the falling, mantling, comfort with height. It's all of those things that I think take time to build up and get used to doing. right? Like you go outside and you climb with 5-inch pads over a bunch of boulders. It's really different than a gym floor. And it just takes people time to get comfortable doing that, to really practice getting on top in every different situation that you're exposed to, like tough mantle, square cut mantle, tall problem, right? That's sort of the challenge that I see. And especially that like transfer from being on your hands to on your feet, that like interchange right there is really complicated for people.
Interesting. Yeah, instead just like from how low can I launch up to grab the top, which I know is a jug.
Yeah.
Just always like, can I just launch from here? Okay, that's a good segue into a lot of the tactics I learned from you. So I was probably, yeah, like a V10 climber or something when you came back from New York. And so I started climbing with you a bunch and kind of learned how to get more into that V13 range. And one of the tactics that really blew me away, that was just a really simple mindset shift, was that when you go outdoors, you go to do the boulders, not to like show up, not to just like kind of play on them, but there's this mentality of sending. And it was a big shift for me where, you're talking about all these differences about dealing with the height or dealing with the fall. But a lot of one of the biggest things that I noticed is that indoors, it's like, oh, there's a new set. Maybe we'll climb them. It'll be here next week, or it'll get stripped and we'll have new boulders. Versus like, we're driving 4 hours. We're hiking out to this thing we heard about. We're going to do everything we can to send today. And that allows you to do more volume too, climb on more cool stuff. But I'm curious if you just always had that mindset or if it was something that you built up, because it wasn't what my crew was like before. They kind of like, they just didn't have that send mentality.
I think for me, the most fun part of climbing is seeing what's the hardest problem I can do in a session. Like whether I'm trying to flash it or whether I'm trying to finish in a session, that's to me the most fun thing. It requires like the technical side, the mental side, and like the management of your strength for that day. You nailed it when you said we put a lot of work into getting to the problem, right? Like that takes effort. And we talked about driving from San Francisco to the mountains. Well, I've already driven 4 hours. I don't want to drive it again to go to this problem. I want to do this other problem next weekend, right? And every climbing area has the strategy that you've got with temperature, right? We climb here at this time of year, here at this time of year, here at this time of year. And so we've already kind of nailed that, getting to this boulder on this date with the conditions. So we're going to try to climb it now, because 2 weeks from now, it might be too cold or it might be too hot. So like acknowledging now's the time to do it. If we're not doing it then, we're going to wait another year or for the other side of the season.
Yeah, that really does make sense. And maybe it just comes with experience too, of knowing that your windows are short. Not just, you could say it's because of weather, because of the driving, but I also point out like you might get injured. You might not. A lot of the stuff that we would go and climb required a lot of pads. And even if I wanted to go by myself, it was like, good luck with Crown Jewel by yourself.
Yeah.
And, it's this recognizing that this is your moment, and then setting yourself up for success. And that's the other thing that really jumped out at me that I learned a lot, was preparing the boulder for success.
Yeah.
Or for a flash. I know that you are a great flasher and love flashing. And part of that was, okay, you go to a boulder and then get on top of it, brush the holds on top, get rid of that lichen, tick that crimp that might just save your ass when you're freaking out on top of it. And I'm sure there's more to it, but yeah, just can you tell me more about like prepping the boulder for success versus just, hoping it works out?
Yeah. Ethan Pringle taught me, like, go to the top of every problem so you know what's up there. And like a lot of the climbing 10, 15 years ago, there wasn't chalk on the holds when you got there. There wasn't a flat landing. You were unsure where the problem went. So you kind of had to explore and figure it out. You had to understand what a top out looks like from on top compared to what it's going to look like from below, and kind of learn what you're looking at, what you want to see. But yeah, that prepping side of things for me is super important. And you're absolutely right. Like it saves your ass when you're up there, right? When you have that crimp ticks, you're like, that's the one I need. and it's there ready to go. But to answer your question about sending things too, I think there's a mental side of things that you were touching on, right? Of like, we are going to do this boulder problem today. Well, we've made a lot of logical choices about the problems that we're getting on. We've kind of compared the difficulty of them to the difficulty of other problems. We've used our resources like YouTube, 8A to sort of see like where the difficulty might lie. And then we've made like a logical assessment, like this feels like it's something I can do this day based on A, B, or C. You know, it would go into things being like, oh, this is going to be something I can do today, or oh, this is going to be a project. But for us, when we were climbing 2012, 2013, there was just a lot of new things that we hadn't seen. So it was a lot of in a session boulder problems, a lot of like 10, 11, 12 range things that we were like, yeah, let's go do this, get it done, move on to the next one. You know, we had weekends where we'd go to like 8 to 10 of those boulders and do our best on all of them.
I was just thinking, I was just talking to someone about this idea of being able to review beta videos and everything. And I think about that time in 2012 and 2013, and some of the most fun experiences I had were when we would go and maybe get like the second or third or fourth ascent, you know, and oftentimes it was a group of 3 of us. Max Zolotukin was one of our good friends there, and you know, we'd get like the second, third, and fourth.
Yeah, crown jewel.
Ooh, crown jewel. I think actually we got third, fourth, and fifth.
Yeah,
V10 Joe got the second one. Luminance was an early one. And I remember if we could get our hands on videos, we would watch them.
Yeah.
Like any little, you know, you talked about 8A. I loved scouring 8A for just any comments that might give you a hint about beta. And it's funny because I don't want to denigrate the use of just beta videos because we would have been all over them. But I do have this like kind of like fondness of somewhere in between of like knowing something but not knowing everything. And I found that sometimes when I watch someone do something before me, it puts these things in my head about beta or where the hard part is or where the foot should be. And it can kind of like, it can make me climb worse because I fall into someone else's frame. And yeah, I don't know if there's a question there, just more a fondness for remembering that side of things, and just any thoughts on, you know, the new era of having tons of chalk on things, on having things ticked.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely slightly less adventure for maybe the general climber than there used to be, but that adventure is easily found by going to like an area that's less trafficked, right? Or an area outside of your country that you're not like ingrained in as much. Like I went to Norway and I had to learn where all the boulders in Norway were, right? But for someone who lives in Trondheim, it's like they're local, they know everything. So, but the video side of things, yeah, I don't watch as many as I used to. I remember when I was in high school and climbing videos were like just starting, and I'd watch all the videos until it slowed down the internet. And my mom would yell at me for slowing down the internet. But I found that really helpful in like learning how to climb, like generally watching people and taking the bits of everything that I really liked out of the videos. So like early on, I think learning the movement or learning what made people successful was extremely helpful in the videos. But as far as it goes for like beta specifics, I think now if you're climbing in that V6 to V10 range, there's endless videos of the things that you want to get on. And it's kind of difficult to filter through those videos and see what you like and what you would do. I mean, Kaya's taking a stab at this with the height of people and everything, but there's still so much nuance that you've got to have a pretty good understanding of movement in general to analyze the video, to see where the hard parts are for people, to see how people are doing things. But yeah, in my coaching, I'll watch beta videos with people and review like 6 different videos and how people are trying the project that my client's working on and sort of go from there. But yeah, huge helpful tool.
So if you have clients that are climbing, some climb.
Evolution to the Lip, classic one that I do with people. Yeah.
Nice, dude. Yeah. What a good one. And then you look at other people and kind of try to compare. That's interesting.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll sit down. I have YouTube on my iPad during our sessions, and we'll go through 4 different videos and see, are people going right hand first? Are people going with the heel hook? Are they using the intermediate? You know, we'll go through all of those and kind of define like what I think the classic sequence should be for them, and then what their options are kind of based on how they'll fit into it.
Oh man, you are just leading us right into the next topic about coaching. But I want to I want to keep on highlighting some of the tactics that I learned from you because, again, kind of helped me on my journey from V10 to V10 plus or whatever that means. And these are things that you got some of them from Ethan Pringle. I got some of them from you. I share them with the next generation when I'm out there with them. And I don't want to say it was easier back then, but there weren't that many people getting out there after it. And so if you met someone who was also psyched, they joined and you got to share this information. So I'm happy, to kind of get a chance to blast a little bit. And one of those things was really caring about pad setup, not just a little bit, but a lot, and getting good at how you put your pads down. And hand in hand with that was the trust you built up with your friends that they were going to have your back when you did do that sketchy mantle. I also think it goes both ways, where you weren't going to do something that was ridiculous for you, because there would be climbers that maybe we didn't want to climb on certain things with because we didn't trust their instincts. And so, it's probably not as big a thing now because there's a lot more pads than there used to be. There really is a lot more pads than there used to be. But, anything about pad placement 101 or just kind of prepping the ground and your crew for to make yourself comfortable to go after a big send.
Yeah. I mean, when I started climbing outside, we'd go climb with 6 people, but there'd be 2 crash pads, right? So not everyone would be carrying a crash pad. Now everyone's carrying 2 or 3 pads. So we'd obviously learn to put them where they needed to be, but we also learned where you would fall, right? Like looking at the wall, the problem, where you're likely to kind of fall off and where they need to be. The better you can place them, the safer you're going to be. And I've climbed 20 years outside. I've had 1 ankle sprain and I walked away from it and could keep climbing the rest of the weekend. So there's a lot about layering, setup. It's so critical in my opinion. And if you can take that safety aspect down some notches, it's less challenging overall to do the boulder problem. So yeah, I'm always telling clients, like, manage all the things that are non-climbing that you can manage. Make them as easy and safe and manageable as possible, and it's going to make the climbing easier.
Yeah, I'm just going to put out a couple more of those like details that I use to this day, and that's you can fold pads to fill in holes. I know it seems like dumb and obvious, but they don't always have to be open. What you want theoretically is just a nice flat surface. And then it's great when you can stack pads. That's wonderful, but that does not mean that you don't have to keep on checking to make sure pads haven't shifted. So I see this with blubber a lot. Like,
I don't like them.
Blubber's a little like, it's good, but it hides the danger sometimes. Another pet peeve of mine, I know I picked up from you, is not having 4 corners. Like, so if you have 4 pads, like it's like they go together on one seam, but then if you put them together in the other seam and you have this little point where all 4 touch, there's invariably like a hole that doesn't work. And
you don't need pads on the X and the Y axis, right? Like you can offset them.
Nice way. I like the graph. That was good. And I also want to emphasize how important it is for the climber to have someone that they trust to spot them. And you're a good spotter. You're a great spotter. There's plenty of people we would go out with that were good spotters. But I had this general belief that when there's 4 people spotting, no one's spotting.
Yeah, I agree with that completely.
And I'm sure you can remember many a time where I looked at you, I was like, Mark, you got me.
Yeah.
Like, I know there's 8 people here, but do you have me? And just having that connection to the ground and hearing that voice is really powerful.
Yeah, I always ask people, or like, I'm getting to that move where I'm scared. I'm like, spot me. And just like reinforcing, like someone's paying attention to my safety. Someone specifically is identifying like how I might fall. But yeah, it's something that's getting lost a little bit in our climbing, is that spotting. We've got so many pads now that the ground can be covered. And I agree with what you're saying. One person should be spotting primarily. More than one person, how are you going to move someone's hips? How are you going to put them down where they need to go, right? Other people are moving the pads and getting set up. Like if you've got a long traverse and the pads need to be shuffled, one person's moving the pads and one person's spotting, right? But yeah, I agree. Having like a point person on the ground that the climbers referencing or like aware of. So yeah, definitely helpful.
And having that plan of where the pads get shuffled to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
who's doing it?
because we were just going climbing on tall boulder problems with half the number of pads they're getting climbed on today. And there needed to be a lot of like plans or a lot of team rally to like get everybody to show up. Like King Air, it's like, oh, everybody's there, so we can do King Air. Oh, everyone's there, so we can do Evolution.
Evolution's got to be the biggest pad sink of all time.
Yeah.
I remember us doing this thing we called a highball hoedown in Squamish.
Oh yeah, that was good fun.
Maybe 2013. Let's just say it's 2013.
Yeah.
And I have no reason to believe this, but I'm just going to say it anyways and claim it. I have a hunch that may have been one of the biggest gathering of pads at that time.
Yeah.
We were in Squamish in summer camping out, and we did a highball day, and we had let people know, and we just collected people from all over the world. We had Japanese climbers, like Australian climbers, from all over, and we had massive amounts of pads. And I just remember going under some of these classics like Teenage Lobotomy or Beyond 4 and just thinking, I bet you this climb has never seen this many pads, because we probably had like between like 15 and 25, or
maybe more.
Maybe
like
we had
30.
30.
We like raised the landing on Teenage Lobotomy like 4 feet.
Still scary.
Yeah, still scary. Yeah.
And that one just to the right of it, there's like some V7 that had like that tiered landing, or V6.
Funeral arrangements. Yeah.
Yeah. Was not dangerous when
no, it was like flat landing, 6 feet high. Yeah.
It's funny because I think that people sometimes have this nostalgia for the old days and like, more adventure, but like having lived through that era, we were all about beta videos and pads. Like there was no like, ooh, it would be cool if we only did this with 2 pads. It was like, oh, I wish we had 7 pads.
Yeah.
Like,
it's just where we've got to now. It's really interesting. It's like doing the same, but with slightly less resources.
I do love the adventure aspect, and I do remember those quite fondly. But, rolling up to places, having a crew, making it safe, it does probably allow you more volume. You get to climb on more things that you love. And I don't want to totally lose the adventure side of things, but the crew is a special thing. Like that's what I really remember is having a great crew is probably the thing that allows you to climb your best. Or at least for me, I wasn't one of those lone wolves that just took one pad to get under a butt dragger and just threw myself until I climbed my first V whatever. Well, on that crew note, you wanted me to mention this story of one of my harder climbs in my career, and that's the Teacup, a V13 in Leavenworth. And I almost did it on the first session. I agree with you. I want to just do hard things. I want to do as hard as I can in the first session. I think there's something fun about just going and climbing. And if you can do it, fucking do it.
Yeah.
Let's not dick around. Like, if you know it's in you, let's
get
do
it done. Yeah.
I couldn't do it that session. I don't remember the days after that, but we ended up on one of the last days, and it was hot. And that night, I rallied you and Will Fraker, a young Will Fraker, to join me at Teacup, and you guys supported me. You guys didn't even try it. And well into the night, I would make a try and then fall.
Well into the night is an understatement. I think we got there at like 9 p.m., just as it was getting dark, or it got dark, and we stayed there till at least 2 a.m. At which point you did it, though.
I did it, though.
That's the most amazing thing. Like every try, the chances get less and less, right? And then you did it at like 2:30 a.m. or something, and it was so cold by that point.
That's why if you ever see that video, Will cheers for me louder than I think I cheered, because I think he was just happy to leave. He was, but it was really important to have people there. It would be like, okay, Josh, you lay there. I'm going to brush it while you're laying there. I would literally set a timer for, I think it was 20 minutes. I'd set a timer for 20 or 30 minutes, listen to Batoko, Raining Again, very important for sending, and just keep on trying. You guys would run off into the woods, probably cursing my name, come back, 20 minutes goes by, another try. But I bring it up because that crew, it's funny, like climbing is a solo pursuit. You're the only one on the boulder. But getting there, getting ready, having those people around you is absolutely crucial for sending. And I don't know if at the time I appreciate it as much as I do now, where I found myself alone more, and still sending, still having fun, but probably one of the things it takes to push your limit is to have a crew that helps you reach your potential.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I reference this for my clients all the time. They're trying to talk about how they divide time with friends and such. Well, if you're a really motivated climber, then you can extremely easily empathize with the person who's trying the project. And so there's no reason why you wouldn't stay there to support them because you understand what they're trying to achieve, right? So for you, it was one of your first 13 or second or something.
Correct.
And so it was like, Josh is going to do this. We just need to stay here until Josh does this. And yeah, we were freezing and we were running off around to stay warm and then like playing music again and again. And it was getting out of hand, but like you did it. That's the thing, right? And it's not a long boulder problem. You're either doing it or you're not doing it, right? So you give it a go, fall off in the first few, like 3 moves in or 2 moves in, because it's only a 5-move boulder. And then we'd rest 20 minutes. And it's like, there's a lot of downtime.
What do you think about just sitting there and banging your head against it? It's something I'm actually really proud of in my climbing, is that I can point to quite a few climbs where it was just like, I know I can do this. Yes, I'm tired. It's how I did the mandala. I don't know if you remember. I'm pretty sure you were there. I just kind of kept on trying. I was wrecked. My skin was wrecked. Everything was wrecked. But I was like, I know I have this in me. It just seems like all the stuff on the internet would tell me like, no, you need to rest. No conditions need to be perfect. You should just go home. What do you tell clients if you saw them at 1 a.m., 4 hours deep? I was wrecked too. I was tired.
Yeah. Well, I think 2 answers. In my own climbing, I never try to get to that point. I do everything I can to avoid getting to that point. I'm kind of on the mindset that if I've given it 3 to 5 goes where nothing's gone wrong and I haven't done it, what's going to be different in that session? I might as well just move on and go climb something else that day, another problem that I'm sure I can do in a session, and try to come back when conditions are a little bit better or I'm feeling a little bit stronger. So that's for me, my logic. But I think ultimately that perseverance that you had there is like really important. And I know lots of people that do send deep into their session, like really, really talented climbers that are doing that too. I guess I say like perseverance pays off. Try to have the perseverance in the gym so you don't have to have it outside as much, so you can kind of show up ready to go. But yeah, a really interesting story. I remember Andy Lamb trying the Vice and doing it like 3.5 hours into a session on like an ultra physical boulder problem. And I remember just being completely blown away. We were like 5 weeks into a Rocklands trip. Everybody's wrecked. Like, I just remember that being one of the more impressive things I've seen as far as like session perseverance.
Damn, go Andy. Also kind of surprised to hear that, because it is really physical and Andy is extremely strong, extremely technical. But I don't think of him as being like an overpowered beast. I think of him as being someone who executes, uses everything he has, every try.
Yeah.
And so I'm surprised that,
This was college age Andy Lamb.
Actually, because it's only V13 for him, he probably did have plenty in reserve.
Yeah.
You are really good at executing. You're good at flashing. When you say, if I have 3 of 5 attempts where nothing went wrong, then you can kind of check off that box in your head. I gave it what I needed to. It didn't happen. So maybe the things outside my control, such as temps or the resting days before or whatever, are things I need to revisit. Can you say more about what those good tries look for you? Like, what does good execution look like for you?
For me, it's like there's a good rest period before climbing where I can deload the stress of what I'm trying to do, right? So I already know the beta, already know what I'm going to do. I've already set the pads up, everything's set. So then I can kind of clear my mind before getting on the boulder problem. And then I really just take it move by move. So I'm not worrying about the second half, not worrying about the corrects. I'm just doing each move to the best of my ability when that move presents itself. So I see a lot of my clients getting nervous about what's happening later on in the problem. Doesn't really matter until you get to that point, right? So you just try to execute each move to the best of your ability. And hopefully then you're at the top of the boulder. But I take a lot of confidence in having checked all those boxes that I talked about, conditions, pads, landings. Like that makes me feel really comfortable and saying like, hey, I've done my best in all these things. Therefore, it's just the climbing. I know how to do the climbing. Let's go for it.
Yeah, another thing that I saw you do or see you do is you climb quickly, especially on red point attempts. There's like this, I don't know, just this very good execution of the moves, and there's a flow to it. And I don't know, I think I see that in a lot of the best climbers where when they know how to do a move, they just do it. And the other thing that I learned is this idea of doing a move the easiest way you can do it, grabbing the hold the best way you can grab it. And when I hear you talk about not getting too sucked into the later moves and executing each move perfectly, and that just seems to be this connected thing where it's like, grab the hold like you should grab it, put your foot where you should put it, twist or do whatever you need to do to put your body into the best position and make it each move easy. And it's just, I don't know, anything more to say on that idea of making each move as easy as possible?
I think going with making each move easy is going with a sequence that links each move together really well. And I wouldn't say I climb particularly quickly, but there's no downtime between movements. So there's every move or section has a purpose to link into the next move. Right. So you might have 2 foot options for a move. One of them is going to link really well with the move prior, and one of them's not going to link so well. There might be a slight difference in difficulty between the two, but if cumulative difficulty comes down, then you're winning. Right. So I do think I can climb quickly when I get things wired. And I do think one of my skill sets is the precision in that speed. And again, I think it ties back to like, I don't really have the strength to be hanging out like in some of these moves. It's like a workaround that I've found and then like practiced a lot as well. But the gym's really good for that because everything's so easy to see, right? And you know where it is. It's less finicky. So you can work on your speed in the gym.
Quick break while I tell you about today's sponsor. You. That's right, you. Thank you to all the patrons who help make this show possible. Join them so you can get episodes early before anyone else, and those episodes are ad-free. As a patron, you also get to submit questions for upcoming guests. The answers to those questions are only available to patrons. Follow the link in the show notes to join now. You also get access to a private Discord where you'll find me and other people who want to go from good to great. Okay, back to the pod. Okay, I have an impossibly hard question for you, but you're a coach and you're an experienced climber, so I'm just going to toss it at you anyways. You have this flow and this technique that you're talking about. Doing moves, not just the easiest, but the easiest when thought of in conjunction with each move in that climb. How do you know when to refine your beta? Look for like a different crystal on the crimp, look for a different foot. And so you're not sending, like you gave 3 of 5 attempts. Maybe conditions are good. How do you decide when to refine your beta and where you look for first?
So my goal when I get to a problem is to do it as quick as possible. And getting to the top is the number one priority. It doesn't have to be perfect. So I'm using my perception of the difficulty to determine how refined I think each move needs to be for the grade in comparison to where I think I land against it. Meaning there are times when I've done lots of problems suboptimally because I've done them in 2 tries instead of putting 10 tries in to get them perfect. 10 tries costs a lot more effort cumulatively than 2 less good tries. In those 3 to 5 attempts that I talked about, if something's going wrong or doesn't feel great, I will stop and revisit that particular thing. So you referenced a time when you're filming me doing a first ascent of the Holy Rails, and I hadn't done the crux move that session. I'd done the crux move the session before, and I was falling on the crux move, and I fell there 2 times, and I was like, I don't have many attempts left. This is a long boulder problem. So I did the crux move, and it takes a lot of effort to do the crux move, skin,
The V11.
The crux is a V11 move. Yeah, exactly. But I did the crux move, rested, and did it from the bottom. And that taught me a lot about you kind of need to do the crux move that day, or it feels really helpful to do the crux move that day just to familiarize yourself with all the absolute nuance that you've got, right? But before we get there, I think having a really deep understanding of movement and then being able to take a highly analytical approach to the problem that you're trying and say, like, am I trying to side pull this hold more? Am I trying to down pull this hold more? Like using your brain, because that's saving all the energy, right? And all the skin. So you're using your brain to really work through each move and then watching your friends climb on it too. I'm always letting my friends go first if they if they can, and I'm watching every single go and I'm seeing what are they doing, where are they grabbing the hold, what's working for them. And that's the benefit, again, you're saying, of having the crew, right? I'd make Josh go first on things or Max go first on things, and learn a lot from that as well.
I'm better at it now, but I have a tendency to not look at where I grab the holds. I kind of just grab them.
Yeah.
And just go, oh, if I try hard enough, it won't really matter if I get this little spike under my pointer or my middle. And that's something that I remember. I mean, it's a big part of granite climbing.
For sure.
Like sitting there saying, like, just like this, and then knowing how to tick it.
But I've already stacked every pad and touched every hold that I can from the ground. So like I've confirmed that before I even started trying the boulder problem, right? Like I know where everything feels best, and I've stood in every position, readjusted, like figured it out before I've even started trying it, right? And these ground up boulder problems are much harder to do when you can't do that. When they're steep, you can't get a rope into it or something. But yeah, I love stacking pads and touching things, standing on your friend's shoulders.
Dude, I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's, again, this prepping the boulder for success, but prepping yourself for success, stacking pads, perfect tick marks, taking the time. I don't think people know about how much time we would spend before pulling on.
Yeah, like 45 minutes before a flash go.
Yeah.
Like 45 minutes at the problem, prepping it, doing everything you said, and just really questioning sequences, like standing in position with the heel hook in, standing on the ground, and deciding, do I want the heel hook? Do I want the toe hook? Right. And just, yeah.
Mark, you've been a coach for at least a decade. Again, I'll say you're probably the climbing coach here in the Bay Area, and one of the best out there in my humble opinion. I don't know. Just, I know you've been doing it for a long time. I got to watch you last night a little bit and refresh my memory. We've been talking about all the things with your clients, and I know that you have something like a 4-step process. And my hunch is we just started trickling into step 1 there with prepping it. So I thought that'd be fun to jump into kind of how you work with clients, what your kind of structure is now with this, 4-step is very catchy, Mark. But we don't have to frame it like that, but yeah.
No, that's right. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's hop into that, because I think we were just kind of getting into step 1, it sounded like.
Yeah. So yeah, I've been coaching for like 12 years.
Oh, geez,
12
man.
years. Yeah.
Congrats.
I coach about 20 clients a week. I've got 40 clients on rotation, and it's almost all in-person movement beta technique refinement, right? So the first session is kind of this onboarding session where I really want to understand how the client can see the boulder, try the boulder, remember what they saw. So step 1, we're coming up with a plan all the way through the problem, hands and feet, sequencing, basically trying to plan as much information as you can about what you're going to do on your flash attempt. You can lean into watching other people climb it, watching videos, your prior knowledge of the holds, the movement. There's a lot that can go into this, but generally with clients, I start with, let's have a concise sequence with hands and feet all the way through the problem so you know what your goal is. Now, there might be option A and option B for certain moves, and if we have that, we're making sure that option A and option B come back to the main plan. Sometimes option B goes off and creates this whole new sequence that we have to then sequence all the way through the boulder to the end. Now we might have option A and option B for 5 different moves on the boulder problem. So you can see how quickly, how complicated it can get on a flash go. Okay, so then step 2, they get on and give it a flash go. Now I'm watching how well they remember the sequence that we came up with and talked through, but I'm also watching for how they improv on the wall, how they deal with slips or foot cuts or something, or a hold being different than they expected. So yeah, the improv is a huge part of it. We all do it as climbers, but I think people rely way too heavily on their improv skills and not enough on their beta planning skills. So let's say you fall off the last move on this flash go. Step 3 is to reevaluate your plan. The key point here is you have to remember exactly what you did on the wall as reference for your new beta plan. It may be that you climbed it exactly as you thought and your foot just slipped, but it may be that you improved every single move, you did none of your beta, and you've got to kind of reevaluate that beta and come up with a new plan. So that's step 3. Step 4, sort of all the things that you need to align to send the boulder problem. So you started to get the sequence really figured out and dialed, but you need the conditions, you need the rest, you need recovery, whether it be per session, per week, or per month. You kind of need to align all of those things to send. Now, gyms are so big and there's so many boulder problems up in gyms that my clients will climb something, improv their way through it, walk away, and not think about what worked. So I really encourage them to look at the difference between step 1 and step 4. How did it feel before you tried it? And what was your experience sending it afterwards? What can you learn from that particular boulder problem?
I wanted to go into this after we talked about prepping the boulder, because when you said something like, 45 minutes before we start, I think that that whole step 1 part is underrated. It's like, I'll just pull on and see what happens. But especially when you're climbing on something that's hard for you, especially when it's outdoors and sharp, you gotta make each go count. I guess everyone is different, but where do you see the most problems? Like, which step?
Step 1 and step 3. So step 1, having that plan all the way through. I think people get complacent, but we want to practice what we do in the gym for outside. We want the gym to be as similar to outside as possible if climbing outside is our goal. So every problem should have that plan all the way through, just like you do outside. But if you're not practicing it in the gym, when it comes time to do it outside, you're not practiced at it. So I think if we look at, take a V8 climber, everything V5 and up should be planned all the way through. Now, at first, it takes my clients a long time to kind of do this, but they get quicker, they get better, they get more familiar with how their gym sets and what sequences they're seeing. Step 3 can be tricky for folks to remember exactly where they were, particularly if the gym's setting with a series of holds where all the holds look the same. Then that gets pretty tricky to be like, was I on this technic pinch or this technic pinch, right? They're kind of all the same. But yeah, that memory side of things is critical to make informed decisions about your next beta plan.
I have a lot of experiences where my flash go is better than my second go. And it's not that I will necessarily forget the holds I grabbed or the feet I used, but something about the body position or how I moved through it. So this is just me sharing my side of things. I love the 4-step process, although you need some acronym, dude.
That's true.
Like send or something.
Yeah.
Like it. The reason why I want to pick more at this is that I think some of my best memories in climbing is when I improv successfully. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's like this interesting thing where sometimes I just enter this flow state as on like flash goes, but then I have a hard time like recalling what went well, like the body position more, and just like, like how granular do you get with the memory of what you did?
I mean, the sky's the limit, realistically, right? As much as you're capable of remembering, to reevaluate what you did is going to be helpful for future goes. Now, I think what you're saying where you trip up on that second go, I think you have expectation about how it's going to be. And I think it's easy to forget how hard you tried on that first go in that second go. Right? You want it to flow as well as it did, but you still tried really hard and things went really well on that first go. I think that's one thing I actually do quite well, is that doesn't really happen to me too much. But yeah, as long as you can kind of remember like the big pieces of what you improved, you can kind of leverage that into refinement of your beta plan, right? So I think lots of times outside there's ground up problems where you get through a crux and you have a top section that you have to do. And you ideally know your 2 or 3 different options, your A or B plan up there. And you try to implement them there because you don't want to fall off after the crux in this section that you haven't got to. right? So for me, I don't really feel like there's improv climbing unless we're getting way pumped and we're not doing things right at the end of a problem and it's absolute desperation at the top. Then there shouldn't really be any improv in there. Even if we're talking in this like new to you problem in the first 3 to 5 attempts on it, it should still be really planned out.
I like that. If you're improving, it's probably because you kind of blew it on the plan making. Because even when it's not really improving if you're following a thread that you had previously anticipated.
Surely. Like I remember climbing El Corazon and you do this. Were you there?
No. I was in South Africa, but I don't know what I was doing that day.
You do this big shoulder move and then it's probably V9 or 10 to the top. And there are 2 different options. I remember trying both of the options and neither of them working and just throwing and making it work. But I tried option A, which was the first one, and option B when I got there, and then carried on from there, right? So prepped and sort of ready to go.
Yeah, I also think that, the longer you do this stuff and the more threads you've followed, both the better you are at kind of anticipating what might actually work for you. And then you have climbed a lot of boulders, Mark. You're definitely a guy who loves volume and that pyramid building. I think that leads you to not really ever improv in a way because you've been in this situation before. You've made it work X, Y, and Z way. And so those ways are very apparent to you quicker. And it goes back to, I think we were talking about this just before, or maybe it was last night, just people often just don't climb enough. Just flat out, period. Resting is great, but climbing 8 days a week like you're a 15-year-old, even if you can't do the unlimited boulders all the time, it builds in you a repertoire and a vocabulary and a toolkit that in some ways can never be faked.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the challenge though is time for people. So for a lot of my clients and people, we don't have the time to be doing this, right? I was lucky enough in my 20s to be able to. And I think just identifying what your projects are and building as much competency in that range is sort of really helpful. So even if you can't go and climb 300 boulders like this, you can climb 10 boulders that build a trajectory to your project that are like your project. That's going to be really helpful. I have clients who one day they're trying a crimpy project and the next day they're trying a compression project on a different rock type. There is crossover, but not as much, right? So it's really challenging. And I think one of the things we would do when we talked about going to these boulders is we'd have that trajectory as sort of there to springboard off.
So we kind of have been basically saying that a lot of the goals that you might have indoors lead to outdoors and making that link. I know not everyone always does that, and it's totally okay if indoors is your end goal, especially if you have a sweet gym like Benchmark. One thing that I see people struggle with, that I'm sure you see with clients as well, is that when they go outdoors, that there's no tape on the wall to put something obvious. Or I guess nowadays I don't even have tape, whatever.
Yeah.
The colored,
Definitely just David.
different world now. And something I saw with Jess, my wife, when she was an incredibly strong boulderer, and we would marionette her up some very difficult problems. And then for our honeymoon, we went sport climbing. And all of a sudden, she had to make 100 decisions of where to put her feet and what to grab with no help. And how do you help people make that transition between indoors and outdoors, where literally maybe you had 3 feet you could choose from that were all, yellow, but now you have in some ways an infinite amount of feet and quite a few handholds. How do you help guide people through that situation?
So I definitely share a lot of personal experience about how I feel like climbing in the gym is different than climbing outside. I think there's a lot of below limit climbing that we do in the gym in that 70 to maybe 85% difficulty range, where you have a lot of choice over how you climb it. You can do it with this foot or with that foot or with whatever. And I really try to impart in my clients how climbing those problems can lead to their goals outside. So I'll teach my clients whose goal is to climb outside they would do the climb if it was outside, what they'd be looking for. They wouldn't have this double clutch. They would have this, how controlled can I lock off this sloper? And so I'll kind of approach things through that lens and really help them identify the key things that they're looking for. So big things where the gym differs from outside, you only use 1 foot in the gym. The setter just takes away that second foot immediately. So I'll ask a client to do a move keeping both feet on or using 2 feet in a tricky way. I'll ask them to really try to stay under the hold, even if the hold's good enough that they can come out from the wall, because outside the hold's not going to be good enough. I'll get them to, and this sounds obvious, but I'll get them to reclimb the problem at keeping their feet on. Now, the setter probably intended the feet to cut on this move, but I'll really encourage the client to keep their feet on for the particular move. And yeah, this is all done in that like 75 to 85% range where they've got a lot of control over how they climb it.
That's really good. Those are definitely the big changes outdoors. I got to ask, why do setters in general, benchmark was not like this, but why do we only often have 1 foot on problems that are made indoors?
Yeah, I could talk about this a lot.
Setting, really?
Yeah, backstory, I started setting in 2008 and I've set on and off through till 2023.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
You sell a lot of boulders, Mark.
Yeah, thousands and thousands. Well, first off, 1 foot is easier to put on than 2 feet, right? The opposition that you get from 1 foot and one hand, to me, is like the foundation of all rock climbing, right? That open hip, squared up opposition is super, super key. So I think a lot of setters, when they're setting simple things, are looking to train themselves and improve their climbing. And a lot of setters are motivated to climb outside. So they're bringing those attributes of outside in. Although we just talked about how outside has 2 feet in certain situations. I think it's a way that setters can use a really bad hold if they get the direction of the foot to work right for them. And I think that's something that's really fun in setting, is being able to master really bad holds, or really bad for the gym holds, very flat, very slopey holds. Not small crimps, because we're moving away from that. But that angle of the foot to have opposition with compression or opposition in a Gaston, yeah, it's just fun if you feel strong doing it as well. I don't know. What do you think?
I think it was the first one you say. It's just laziness. And I think that it's also what you're saying, where oftentimes the holds are too good, and they'll have a lip on there, and it allows you to kind of generate more off your hand, where typically when I think about how you do hard moves, you often have some marginal low foot that gives you just enough to get your hips over the higher foot to make everything work. And it is something that I learned from you a lot, Mark, is I did not play rugby, and that's my, or cricket, or
rugby wasn't my main sport.
But you broke your arm, dude.
I did break my arm playing rugby, yeah.
Dude, just take that.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna, I want to like blame my lack of technical footwork on that. And just, often I would try to overpower things by, it's like, okay, well, I climb well with the 1 foot
really well
style.
It's just one of your superpowers.
It is. And sometimes that really is a superpower. And sometimes it leads me to use more effort than need be. And I learned pretty early on from you, like, look for that second foot. And I actually got ripped online for this one. But something I learned from you, so I'm going to blame you. Oftentimes we'd be climbing, and there would be only 1 foot, and you would step on like a bolt hole.
I don't think I've stepped on a bolt hole.
A bolt hole, not a bolt, just like, in like we'd be on the red wall in PG down low, and just to give you, or it could be like those old plaster walls would sometimes have a little thing.
Yeah.
And this might not even be like a set problem. This is just something we make up, something to give you pressure on your smear foot, like a little bit better.
So I completely agree with what you're saying. That low foot generation over the high foot opposition is everything in my take. I call it the swoop, and I walk all my clients through it. And to me, that goes back to what we're saying about linking moves together. That low foot transition over the high foot really gives you the momentum to decrease the lock-off requirement, or the opposition lock-off requirement.
Well, I like how you avoided me putting the blame on you of me learning that from you. I swear I did, though, internet.
I think what you might be understanding is, like, we would make up boulder problems, and I would try to break it before I'd even tried the regular way. I would always do things what felt like the easiest way.
Yeah.
And I still bring that to my climbing, right? And I think it's one of the attributes that helped me with setting is I would look at something and be like, well, I see what you intended, but I'm going to do it this way because it fits me better. And I do that to this day on every single problem. And I encourage all my clients to do that.
Yeah. And so the thing that I got ripped on for, which I still maintain is the right way to do things, is that idea of looking what's possible and then doing it the easiest way possible is the goal. And so even if the setter didn't mean for you to do that thing, when you go outside, you're looking for the easiest way. And so
Absolutely.
that doesn't mean you shouldn't like train to then, try it the hard way or whatever you want to make that other argument. But just that the point is to do the boulder, do it the easiest way. And Mark, you were really creative on that ability to find different ways. And I'm thinking about that same Leavenworth trip where you did Hagakure, which I'm pretty sure you pioneered this high heel hook beta. There's, this cool, like kind of rail, this and another slopey rail. And instead of like doing that kind of shouldery, like really burly move.
Super hard move.
Yeah, you got high heel and like crossed. And it looked obvious. Honestly, when you did, I was like, oh yeah, I still didn't do it. But, but it made sense to improv. No, I don't want to use the improv word here after we already defined it.
I tried it with the slope away first, and I was like, there is no way my left shoulder's doing this move, right? So it was like, I tried the intended. I tried the common beta first, and then was like, I can't do this. I need to brainstorm a different option. And what was great about that beta is it made the rest easier too, right? So it made the cross move or getting to the hold that was the challenge hard, but then also helped for the rest of it. But yeah, I encourage all my clients to do things the easiest way for them first, because that's what rock climbing is.
Okay, 2 questions on that. Again, super difficult, but I just can't help but pick your brain on this stuff. When you're newer in climbing, how do you even know what your superpower is? And my other question is, I would climb with you and Max on the Plexia spray wall a lot. I have certain things that are a superpower of mine, and you have certain things that are a superpower of yours. But when I would see you do things, sometimes it wasn't even something I understood was possible. You would use a crimp and a really far foot and then lock it off. And in my head, it was maybe easier for me to just jump and not use that foot. But it actually was something that was holding me back, where I would just lean into my superpower more and more. And then seeing you do something a different way would let me explore a movement pattern and sometimes do it in something that I was really bad at before. And so it's like you can almost restrict your progress by only going to what you're good at. Yeah, that's a tricky question. I already forgot what the first one I asked
Okay,
was.
it's a lot to unpack. How do people know their superpowers? I think it's the thing that you enjoy doing. If you enjoy that aspect of climbing, most likely you're good at it, right? What do I not enjoy doing? Pull-ups, right? I'm not very good at pull-ups. They're not my superpower. But the things that, I think the thing you enjoy doing the most is probably your superpower, or it will become your superpower because you enjoy doing it the most, right? Then to kind of answer your second question, what really helped us then was the diversity in styles between the three of us really sessioning together. So we always got a different perspective on how to do a move. And we were lucky that we had friends that had these different styles. It's definitely something that you can do watching video of people, but it's kind of harder to sort of extrapolate out to like how you're going to do it. So to make your comment about should you jump or should you kick the far foot? Well, I couldn't jump, right? So I had to kick the far foot because it was the way that worked for me. Now, I wanted to learn to do the jump way and you wanted to learn to do the foot way. And it's just that coming back to that comparison of like, how can I do this move? What's the easiest way for me to do it? But if we look at the gym to outdoor conversation, jumping to that spraggly crimp is not going to work as well as kicking your foot over and doing it that way. So again, just really trying to implement skills that you want to improve on for outside in the gym is kind of the key.
Yeah, I like that. It's knowing what your goal is. And then even if you tend towards a certain manner, you have to acknowledge if your goal is to do, this off vert thing that requires you to lock off because you can't just huck to a 6 mil.
Spectre's a great example of this, right? You have to either keep your foot on to reach a small crimp, or you jump and hold this insane swing on a small crimp. Now, people weren't jumping, and maybe not everybody's jumping. There's a height requirement in there too. But nowadays, people are so practiced at this jump move because they do it in the gym, they can jump to it, and that problem is becoming much more accessible for people generally.
Have you tried that new beta, by the way?
No, I'll never do it that way.
I'm hoping I can. I've only tried it the OG way.
That's the move I can't do, is getting the crimp. I can do the rest.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You know what's funny is I can I figure out how to do it with a heel hook.
Yeah.
But then I'm so spanned out that I can't undo it.
I can undo it any which way, but I can't get the crimp.
Yeah. I do really think it's cool when there is multiple ways to do a problem that are so different, but probably the same difficulty.
Yeah, super cool.
And yeah, props to Carlo. Carlo did tell me that little story about how he pioneered that jump move. And it was because he was on Dominator a bunch and he was just owning that like pinch like that. He said, like he was just getting so used to that one because he didn't do it with the heel hook. All right, off into the weeds. Let's see. Route setting, coaching, benchmark. Mark, you were part of the founding team of the Benchmark Gym. You guys have a location in San Francisco and Berkeley. I climbed at the Berkeley location. It's fantastic. I love it. I just am angry it's not in my backyard. Almost makes me want to move back here. Good setting, good space. Tell me about how that all began. And yeah, just take me on that journey a little bit about how Benchmark came to be.
So I was coaching at a big gym in the city, and there were 300 plus boulder problems, and I was really curating the boulder problems for my clients, not setting them, but just saying, hey, these are the ones that you should get on. And for each client, it really kind of only boiled down to 10 or 15 boulder problems that met the criteria for their goals and kind of taught them the things that they needed. But
that's 0.5%.
Yeah, it's not very much.
Am I right? I shouldn't be trying to do math on camera, but I'm going to just
do it in post.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of the themes in the setting that weren't conducive to the outdoor progression, right? A lot of big slopey feet, a lot of jumping, a lot of big holds, a lot of steep roof climb, like really, really steep, like monkey bar kind of roof climbing. And I was like, we need a gym where the setting is conducive to people's progression outside. But that doesn't mean it's not compy or doesn't have that coordination style setting as well. I did a coaching clinic at GP81 and chatted with Cliff and Julian about the setup, how it worked. I was just blown away by how cool the space was. There was a barbecue on a Thursday night and 150 people came up to the barbecue. There's a sign up wait list to man the grill at the barbecue. I was like, this is amazing. This is community. And joined forces with my friend, co-founder Austin Kwan, and we just started diving into what opening a gym would be like in the city, looking at real estate, kind of understanding things. But we really wanted to kind of do the full package. We didn't want it to be just like a really small training dungeon. We wanted it to be a really comfortable space for people to hang out in. We wanted it to be pretty. We wanted it to be high quality. We wanted it to be clean.
Really? Why would you want a gym to be clean?
Yeah. And we wanted the wall design to really lead the charge in the space, like be the most important thing. Like we chose the space because we could put the best walls in it. And location is obviously critical too. So the marriage of those things was important, but we didn't want to have any compromises on angles for certain areas, like HVAC getting in the way, return walls, kind of weird fall zones. We just wanted everything to work, and we were climbers designing a gym.
For those that don't know you, Mark, you are very aesthetically oriented. I mean, the boulders that you set, I remember really learning that from you and Max.
Max in particular.
Max is
he's maybe one of the
setting aesthetics driven, and it really influenced me because I came up in an era even before we started climbing together where that was like a joke, like who cares? These like weird brown and gray like awkward looking holds and they were all different colors and just this idea of making climbing more beautiful, the space being beautiful, clean, it being focused on the climbing. But then I love the idea of when you have that as a driving principle, it filters into where the seating is, just yeah, what that whole experience is. Like that's a cool point of view to take instead of just like, how many yoga classes can we shove into this corner and just very, optimized for something that didn't feel like climbing to you.
It didn't really feel so complicated to get that in there too, right? Wasn't like we spent extra money to do certain things. Maybe we spent a little bit more on furniture, but that's comfort. That's member retention, you know? So it just felt like we had options on things and we took the time to decide which option we wanted instead of necessarily going with the like obvious, it's a gray wall.
So tell me about the wall design and tell me about the hold by and tell me about the setting. Is that the order that it went in? I guess is like when you have a blank slate like that, sometimes that must seem intimidating, but how'd you balance like, steepness versus, not so steep?
Yeah. Well, every space that we looked at and just started roughing out wall designs for has constraints. And I think constraints are actually really helpful because it tells you the size of what wall you can put where and everything. Now, I think a lot of gyms have a lot of low angle terrain, and it really helps gyms bring in new climbers, new members. And I knew that could be accomplished in a smaller percentage of the overall angles of walls. So we just have more steep climbing in our gym. And I think lots of folks just want to have more steep stuff to climb on. People are really good these days right off the get-go too. So there's a lot of people making up the big overhangs on their first 3 months in climbing, which kind of wasn't the case.
Well, you just started out by saying how a lot of the stuff is like steep and monkey barry and that the setting often was not conducive to people's goals outside. So tell me about like, I love steep
Yeah, you
stuff.
got that juxtaposition in
Yeah,
there.
yeah, I'm going to give you crap on that because to me, that feature, the wedge, which is I think has a 60-degree a giant 60-degree panel, but kind of waves out a little bit. Steep climbing is fun. Steep climbing is important. How do you deal with the setting there and weave that into the whole thing of getting people better for their whatever goals they have?
Totally. So when we started setting, I really put emphasis on opposition and tension. Those were the things that I felt like were lacked in this big gym that I was coaching at before. And I was running the setting program, and that was sort of infiltrating all the setters, the goals of problems we were looking for, but with the underlying tension and edges, right? Those are the things that I think help people get much better at climbing. There's a balance between having an appropriate amount of one type of climb another type of climb. But I think as a setter, if you look around the gym and you can see what's on the wall already or what's been on the wall prior, you kind of know what should be there to have an appropriate balance. And as long as the setters are aligned on what an appropriate balance of everything is, then I think you'll get that quality coming through. So one of the things that I implemented when I was a head setter is we'd talk about the set that we were taking down while taking it down and say what worked, what we liked, what we didn't like, what we're going to try to do for the next set. And we're sort of set an intention for the day moving forward. Whereas I think in a lot of big commercial gyms, the setters are kind of burned and they're putting up what they enjoy and what they want to climb on. And it doesn't really work cohesively. Either we end up with 5 crimpy V5s or no crimpy V5s. And we need that spread across the styles and grades to be there.
Yeah, what you often get in burnt out setters is they flip one hard tag, they put a lot of effort into it, and then just the rest of the day they're just putting up whatever the holds kind of let them do as quick as possible. That's why you see like, whoa, look at this cool mantle problem. It only took me 3 minutes to put up because it's just 2 holds. Like I swear I meant to make it a cool mantle and I wasn't just being lazy.
Yeah, well, in our business model, we have time set aside for route setters. They set less problems a day. We put more time into the forerunning. And we got to pick all the holds that we wanted. So there's no limit in what's there. I mean, I think we have extra surplus and some gyms have. Everything was brand new as well. So that really helps.
Tell me more about opposition, tension? Like, yeah, I just want to dive in a little bit more into that and what that looks like on setting.
I think it's having the right size foot for the difficulty of climb that you're on. And I think that's probably the most important thing is that you put V5 size feet with a V5 size hand on a V5. Now you can have outliers. And if there's a couple problems in the gym, that can really teach people something, right? If you have V4 feet on V10 crimps or vice versa, it teaches you something. But as long as we have that consistency across the gym, that the feet will get tougher, the movement and the tension requirement will go up as the difficulty goes up. It's going to really force people to learn to use their feet and hold that opposition. But yeah, kind of going back to my coaching, that opposition to me is the fundamental kind of climbing movement. And particularly, I like to push it with a very open hip just to get your hips really close to the wall. So yeah, if that's not there in the setting, then how can you learn to do it for your climbing outside?
So I want to pick more on that. I'm just being me, Mark, because I know you can handle this. So when I climb there yesterday, whenever I climb on a benchmark set, whenever I climb on your setting, Mark, I find it very comfortable in the best way. The feet are, I don't want to say they're where I want it, they're where I need it. The holds aren't cocked in some angle that make my wrist hurt. And so I find that I'm often able to walk up and read a problem quite well, execute quite well on it, and really deeply enjoy it. But I could make the argument that oftentimes outdoors, the foot is a little higher than you wanted it, or the hold's cocked again, like a little bit in a way that you don't like. What's your theory or philosophy there around making something indoors that is very approachable and fun and morphologically makes sense?
Yeah, and I like my climbs to be ergonomic. Doesn't mean there's not a lot of power. And I think one thing that I do to make my climbs difficult is I'll make the cross that one T-nut further, or I'll make the bump that little bit more. And yeah, that's tricky to implement without making things reachy sometimes. It's kind of a balance. But I wouldn't want a gym where I only climbed on my boulder problems, right? I wouldn't get better there. So I do think there's room for the moonboard, which has things at that tricky, weird angle. But if you're climbing outside as much as we were, then you're getting a lot of your projecting stimulus outside. You don't need to be trying your 90 to 100% intensity in the gym if you're doing that on the weekends, right? So the gym's there to reinforce your climbing outside if you can get outside as much. Now we can talk about what you should do if you can. But for a lot of my clients, when we're getting into this fall season now, I'm like, hey, your projecting doesn't need to be as intense in the gym. We can bring that level down because outside you're projecting 2 days a week already.
I totally agree. And I really don't want to put it out there that when I come in next to benchmark, I want it to be unergonomic and weird. I'm a big fan of.
Well, I'm not setting currently, so.
Well, just putting it out there. Please, guys, don't. I feel like a lot of quote unquote bad setting that's all awkward is it's actually people are lazy and they're like, it's good training for outside. And you're like, you just don't know how to make it feel good. And the thing I would actually argue is that oftentimes outdoor boulders are ergonomic and you're just not doing them right.
Yeah, I think climbing outside is a lot more comfortable on the body than climbing in the gym. And the thing I particularly tell my clients is in the gym, there's no conditions. You don't have control over that. You are sliding around on the hold and you are over gripping. And subsequently, you are using your shoulder more than you need to, using your fingers more than you need to. And outside in good conditions, you are locked into that hold and you can pull at the angle you want to pull at it on. And the lack of movement there is what is more comfortable for me.
I also think that just like you're saying, where if you're working on your power indoors, let's just make the analogy of, squatting or something, doing like some weightlifting style squat. You don't want to work on your power by making it really awkward and tweaky.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, we could cock this hold and make it even more wristy and then it mimics this. But if something feels awkward or painful, it's unlikely you're going to be able to put 100%, 101% effort into it, which is really what it takes to build that power. So do we really want to make it awkward and dangerous?
No, I think it's your responsibility as a setter to make it approachable for everybody. You do not want your members to be getting injured. You do not want it to be weird. I mean, I know that's very general, and we could talk about like, oh, what degree of awkward and uncomfortable should we have? Well, I think that's where you lean into your setting team and you ask, the plethora of people like, do you like this? Do you like this? What do you think?
Okay. I set with you guys a bit. I learned a lot. I was not a great setter. I just was an okay setter. And what I tried to do is make things really comfortable. Put 2 feet on, not make it awkward. And what I saw is that when you guys would venture into moves that I might deem awkward or difficult, typically would be the feet allowed you to get into the position that made it not awkward, but you had to really commit to the feet. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, here's the solution.
Yeah,
It
that's
may
well
feel
said.
a little weird, but when you commit, your shoulder won't explode.
Yeah.
And I think that's like, it's harder to do as a setter than people realize, where you can put something tweaky on you. I'm just going to turn this crimp upside down. Good luck.
Yeah.
But that's not how climbing outdoors works either.
You have options outside. And I think the challenge with a lot of the more new school setting is there are less options and less feet, right? So if you give someone feet, it gives them choices on how to do something.
How has setting evolved from 2008? I mean, that's like a massive question, but
Yeah.
if you had to pick out a few highlights of maybe things you like and don't like compared to when you started.
I mean, I love how modular things are. We can just move everything around, build what you want. I think we got to find a limit in how much you're building a climb. When you're stacking like 6 volumes and 3 holds on top of each other, it gets a little extreme. And as like a founder of Benchmark, we try not to put extra holes in our holds. We rarely put extra holes in, but a lot of holds come with washers in the screw holes now, so it's great. Yeah, I think we just got to make sure that there's still tension there. There's still an emphasis on footholds, depict options, teach people how to climb. I think it's amazing all these coordination things that people are coming up with, but a lot of enthusiastic high-level climbers' goals are to climb outside. And if they're not getting quite serviced by the gym problems appropriately, they're going to climb on the boards. And that's why we've seen this huge rise in boards, I think. Right? The boards fill the niche that the gym boulders are moving away from.
On that note, what are some of the things that you see in today's clients that are probably driven by the state of the setting and holds and walls today versus 10 years ago? Like, where are the common things or the common holes now versus 10 years ago when you started?
I really focus on that open hip opposition and being able to square up there. And then I really want my clients to be able to have a diversified grip strength repertoire, meaning that they can do the different grip positions. But I really believe in that half crimp position with the thumb braced against the wall, particularly for gym climbing where everything sticks off the wall. If you have that half crimp ability, you can engage your thumb against the wall, you can generate torque, you can maintain that hollow body position. To me, that's like one of the most important parts of climbing. It doesn't mean that you can't put your thumb on top when you need to, right? And I sort of tell my clients, I think the thumb should go on top for your last 10% of strength, right? You can climb up to 90% in a half crimp, and when you really need to, you use that full crimp.
Dude, I love that you linked the half crimp to the opposing thumb, to how that lets you add torque and takes it through the hollow body. Like, it's one thing to be like, half crimping is good, but like connecting that whole chain is different. And when you put your thumb over and make a fist and make that hold as good as it can be, it has its pros, but also has its cons. It kind of changes how you can relate that hold to the rest of the body. And I'd say it reduces options while making the hold as good as it can be, but it reduces how that transfers into your body.
Yeah. So for a lot of my clients, I really encourage them to look after their fingers, because I see a lot of people whose fingers aren't working optimally, and it's difficult to turn back the clock on some of that finger degeneration that happens. And I think that half crimp does that, right? You're not full crimping, or you're not moving your grip on the climb. You're not grabbing it in a full crimp and then dropping to open hand and going back and forth. But yeah, that for longevity is kind of critical.
Mark, I spend a lot of time on boards now because I don't get to climb at Benchmark with you. I'm sure that you see a lot of clients that are spending a lot of time on boards.
Yeah.
What are some of the holes you see in their ability, and maybe how could they rectify them?
That's a deep question. There's a lot there. Um,
Just teach me. There's a lot of reasons why people end up on boards, but it's
yeah.
happening more and more. And I know that while it's given me some things, it's also not allowed me to practice other things, and maybe even things I'm not aware of. I'm missing out on, and just wondering how do you deal with clients like that?
So I think for my clients on the boards, I really work on making sure their shoulders are doing the bulk of the lifting, right? Climbing, I believe, is like a lat dominant sport. And if you can figure out how to engage your lats, you're connecting your shoulder all the way through your body. Your lat attaches at your hip,
At your hip.
right? Think about that. The muscle that controls your shoulder attaches at your hip. So if the problem that they're climbing on is lacking feet and they're in a really uncomfortable position and their shoulders aren't in a strong position, they're not going to learn to use that lat to move. So I'll curate the problems that they're getting on and give recommendations to ones that are generally a bit more ergonomic, but they're still on the boards. They're still small crimps. They're still kind of powerful. I'll let clients lead as well. Like they have things that they're working on, we'll work on them, but we'll find a way to do things comfortably. We'll find a way to do things that has longevity in their climbing, right? Because injuries are a massive setback. And one of the things that I've learned is no climb is worth injuring yourself for. Daniel Fong kind of taught me that one as well. Said that one time.
Which one was that?
Many.
Yeah. He doesn't get injured though.
No,
so.
he's really good. But yeah, no climb's worth injuring yourself for. So like figure out how you can climb it comfortably. There's no shortage of rock climbs, right? So if it's not working for you, move on to something else. I tell a lot of my clients, like, vet the climbs that you're getting on, vet them heavily before you commit to trying them, right? And this goes back to what you're saying at the beginning of the pod about we're going to these boulders to try to do them. Well, we've already vetted them, right? And like picking a project is really important, but knowing the criteria of what you're picking is really critical. So I encourage my clients to understand, is the problem consistent in difficulty, or is there a standout crux? If there's a standout crux, it's not going to be your first of the grade, right? Is the problem too short? Does that mean each move is really hard for the grade? Is the problem too long? Is the endurance really hard? So I would say, like, look for something that is a variety of styles in the 5 to 9 move range, if we're talking about boulders. I don't know anything about ropes. And does it have a long season or window that you can climb on it? And are you excited about it, right?
Mark, we have climbed on some very beautiful climbs. You've FA'd some beautiful climbs. I know you have just a deep love for bouldering, not rope climbing, although wherever you tie in, you do damn well also. What are climbs that you're really excited about, and why? Like, what makes a boulder good? Outdoors, we're talking about.
Yeah. This is a good question.
Well, you've done a lot of boulders,
yeah,
right?
Yeah,
You've done a
yeah.
shitload
No,
of boulders.
I thought you might ask something like this. I like elegant, simple boulder problems. They don't need to be overly complex. They don't need to have so much micro beta in there. But I think being able to execute the simplicity really well at your absolute limit is what's really fun for me. So the swarm, for an example, right? You have to do it perfectly unless you're way stronger than the boulder problem. And the simplicity almost makes it difficult to do it perfectly because there's not a whole large number of things that you can change on each move, but there's subtle things that you can change. So for me, I'm enjoying something, it's striking, medium tall, doesn't need to be crazy tall. And just having an obvious start is really nice. Yeah. And good rock. Those are common things.
Check on the swarm there.
Not my favorite problem I've ever done, but one I'm proud to have done for sure.
It is crazy. Sometimes I'll go there and I'll see people who, I don't know if they're too strong for the problem, but they're too strong for the second move, and they just swing around on that. And then they struggle with the rest of it, which I want to toss in there. I think those are better boulders where they have kind of different things that they ask you to do. Like there is something beautiful about like a simple one move crimp, but I think the swarm is special because you'll see people who can crush those first couple of moves and just can crimp like a champ, and then really struggle with more powerful kind of outro traverse. I think that's cool when they do that.
Yeah. I really like having some history in the problems that I do. It doesn't have to be crazy. It can be personal history too, right? I think I did this problem Focus in Norway. It's like there's a video of Nale flashing it from 15 years ago. It's like a V12. And to me, it was just an amazing experience. Like, go there, find the problem. There was no one at the boulder, no one at the crag, and be like, okay, I'm gonna try this. I've been thinking about that one for a long time.
And here I thought you were talking about when we did Focus in Waco. Medium tall, good one.
Yeah, that's classic. A good one. Yeah.
Can't remember what video I saw of people doing that, but I really wanted to do it once I heard about that. All right, Mark, I'm going to ask you my classic question, and that's, how do you go from good to great?
It's a consistent analysis of what's working for you and what's not working for you, right? So that's a very vague statement, but it's taking all the different sections of your climbing and consistently analyzing what's helping you improve, what's not. Now you need to look at it in like a short term, medium term, and long term. And that's very complicated for people to do, is to be able to take that stepped out approach and go, this was working for me now, but it's not working for me as much anymore. Yeah, it's the combination of many small victories, in my opinion. Not getting injured is a critical one as well.
Yeah, I will voice that when you're talking about taking care of your fingers. Can you hear my fingers cracking and popping? Yeah, don't get hurt. Don't get hurt. You've been pretty good about that.
Yeah, 2 major injuries in 20 years.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Pretty good.
I do think part of that is having that pyramid showing up. I was going to say being successful. And what I mean by that is that's also something I learned from you. And it has to do with that going to boulders and getting on top of it is, I want to say that success begets success.
Yeah, and stepping stones.
It's nice to start out the season. I remember you start out the season with sends. And then you get deeper into your season, you kind of have the ball rolling. And I remember even doing this where maybe we're trying a V12 that day. It was really nice to send a new V9 that day too, before going to the 12.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, setting yourself up for success is kind of critical, getting that ball rolling. And if something's not working, being able to change it and come back next weekend when you're climbing outside and figure out what didn't work, kind of iterating on it. Right. I think that's kind of tying into what I was saying about managing all these small choices. And then watching what your peers are doing that are successful. I think I got so much influence in my climbing from Ethan Pringle. He was there when I did like my first V7, first V9, first V10, first V12.
Was it the Amagama stand?
On the other side of the boulder.
Oh, okay.
Lost for Life.
Lost for Life.
Oh. And then, that one had a video that I saw that I really want to do that one.
Well, you guys had good video of you and Ethan out there trying to play with kangaroos and
yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good reference.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll again echo that importance of your peers. Mark, you helped me a lot in my climbing. A lot. I'm glad to get to sit down with you and, just some of those tactics and topics that we went over, I draw on them daily. And again, I already said this, but it's underrated having a crew. And I remember I got some question early on that was like, I have this great training plan that my coach made for me. Maybe it was you, Mark, but then the strong crew came in and I got a chance to climb with them. Should I follow my training plan or should I climb with those that are stronger than me? And I was just like, go climb with those that are stronger than you.
This pod has answered that question.
just that. And so, I'm glad to rehash some of those. There is 1,000,001 stories that we would never have time for. But some of those tactics I'm glad we got to go over them and hopefully put them out there in the world because they got handed down to me. And I'm not so sure that the community hands them down as easily as it used to. Maybe in places like Benchmark that happens, but climbing has grown a lot. And these tactics that once you see them, you can't unsee them.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it.
Yeah, I love getting them out there. So now I got a few more technical questions for you that are a little couple of Patreon favorites. So If you want to hear that Q&A and other extra behind-the-scenes content from this episode and others, head over to patreon.com/testpiece to sign up now. Patrons also get their episodes early and ad-free. There's hours and hours of bonus content there to help you on your own path of going from good to great. Still not sure? There's a free 7-day trial for you to check it out. And to help the show grow, please share this episode with someone who would love it. Okay, see you next week.